Hello everyone and welcome to another Big Ten preview. So in this one we'll be looking at the Northwestern Wildcats. Northwestern was one of the biggest surprises in college football last year, obviously coming off a 1-11 season, losing their head coach in very kind of bad fashion right before the season ends with that whole kind of hazing scandal thing. But either way, obviously really two things that most teams would, be happy to get 3 or 4 wins given the circumstances. Well, Northwestern doubled that, ending the season at 8-5. Not only finishing the regular season 7-5, but then they again also won their bowl game against Utah, a pretty decent opponent in the Las Vegas Bowl. And yeah, they'll look to continue that momentum. David Braun, who kind of took over as the interim coach last year, he has since gotten the lost the interim tag, and he's the full-time head coach now. Again, not a hard decision after what he did last year with this team. It's just an incredible story they were last year. Yeah, that can't be repeated enough, just how insane that was. But either way, now let's look at the let's look at this year's team, and let's look at the key players and their projected kind of stats on both sides of the ball. At quarterback, the projected starter is going to be Mike Wright. He is a transfer from Mississippi State, where he did not get a ton of playing time last year. He went 48 for 85 for 453 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He also had 324 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground as well. At running back, their top 2 options are Cam Porter and Caleb Kamalafe. Cam Porter had 166 carries for 651 yards and 4 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Caleb Kamalafe, he's a redshirt freshman, so he really hasn't had much playing time yet. So he'll get his first, real snaps this year. At wide receiver, the top 3 options are A.J. Henning, Frank Covey, and Bryce Kurtz. A.J. Henning last year had 45 receptions for 418 yards and 4 touchdowns. Frank Covey will be getting his first real action, as again he was another redshirt freshman last year. And then Bryce Kurtz last year, he had 49 receptions for 701 yards and 5 touchdowns. At tight end, Thomas Gordon is projected to be the top guy. Last year he had 13 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. On offense, the Wildcats are projected to score about 21.9 points and gain about 307 yards of total offense. So yeah, maybe a step back in that regard. A lot of young guys. So hey, that just means it's kind of a variable thing. If the young guys end up performing, very well, then obviously that number is going to jump heavily. If they kind of play like young guys, then that number might go down. But either way, it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go from, with again the young guys. But anyway, on defense, they return Xander Muller. I kind of combine those 2 words. He had 110 tackles for 5 sacks and 3 interceptions. Man, I'm falling apart here. Aiden Hubbard, he also returns. He had 6 sacks last year, leading the team in that category. And finally, on defense, the Wildcats are projected to give up 27 points per game and give up 356.5 yards of total offense. So now let's go ahead and look at the Northwestern schedule. It is ranked 25th in the country in terms of toughness, so it's not going to be the hardest thing in the world, obviously, but it does definitely have its periods of being tough. It kind of peaks. It kind of starts off pretty slow, but then near the end it gets really, really tough. And again, it also depends a lot on how some other teams kind of end up going. And so, yeah, obviously the schedule always does that. In college football, you never know. I mean, yeah, you can take your guesses on who's going to be good and who's going to be bad, but there's always surprises. Again, Northwestern last year is a great example of that. A team that probably you were looking at a schedule going, oh, Northwestern, with all the turmoil, that should be a good chance for us to win. Oh, wait a minute, 8-5. So either way, yeah, let's get to it. So the Wildcats start their schedule off playing Miami, Ohio at home. The Wildcats have had a bit of an issue against MAC schools as of late. They have lost 7 of their last 10 against MAC schools, and in fact, they lost to the Redhawks back in 2022, 17-14. So yeah, trying to reverse that trend. Speaking of trends are trying to kind of reverse, then the Wildcats host the Duke Blue Devils, who they have struggled against. They have lost 5 in a row to Duke, so they're going to try to turn that around as well. Then the Wildcats play their FCS opponent, Eastern Illinois, on September 14th. That'll be kind of a warm-up game before they end up having to go to the Pacific Northwest as they battle between the 2 purple Big Ten teams as Washington and Northwestern play. That is their first matchup since 1984, and that one is on. Then the Wildcats get their first bye before hosting the Indiana Hoosiers on October 5th. On October 12th, the Wildcats are back on the road facing off against the Terrapins of Maryland. Then the schedule kind of starts to get tough. It kind of starts ramping up at this point. this is, it starts off, as I just mentioned, with some pretty, games that are 50-50 or winnable games, and then it starts going up. As then they get to host Wisconsin, which for Northwestern, hosting Wisconsin has been a good thing for them lately. They have done really well against Wisconsin over the last, decade or so. So in Evanston, so that's definitely, it's a tough step up an opponent, but it's one that they've had their number in Evanston. Then on October 26th, they will have to travel to Iowa City to face off against Iowa. Then on October 2nd, they have to travel to West Lafayette, where they have beaten Purdue 5 out of the last 6 times they have played there. But Purdue is coming off a bye, so that could play in part, obviously, that later in the season. Having, when you have your bye, obviously makes a huge difference because, obviously one team's been playing for 5 weeks in a row. The other team's just had a week off, so they can play a different, in 50-50 games, they can be the difference, yeah. But either way, then on October, then they get their bye before the next 2 weeks, and they probably need it. As on November 16th, they host the Ohio State Buckeyes at Wrigley Field in a game that should be, pretty tough to say the least. And then, it gets better than this. Then they get to go to Ann Arbor to play the defending national champion Michigan Wolverines. And not only do they have to play Michigan after playing Ohio State, but the week previous, Michigan is on a bye. So Michigan coming off a bye, at home against Northwestern, that's going to be a tough one for Northwestern. It's just a tough 2 games to have to play Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back again, with the added bonus that Michigan's coming off a bye. So kind of a tough break for them in the whole schedule department. But either way, then it's fine. Then it's back to Wrigley as they battle Illinois in the Land of Lincoln Trophy game. And as I kind of went over in that Illinois video, I think it's really cool this game is taking place in Wrigley. It's kind of a cool thing that the 2 Illinois colleges like that are playing at Wrigley Field this year. I know it's because Ryan Field is under construction, but I still think it's cool that they're able to put that game at Wrigley again. But yeah, overall, I would say if Northwestern is going to have another good season, they're going to have to start off fast. 5-1 is not unrealistic for this team right off the gate, and if they can get some momentum going and get some big wins against maybe win one of those 2 games, 2 or 3 of those games that. The Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue, Illinois, then they can actually find themselves back to maybe having an 8-win, 7-win season. But either way, we'll see. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.